So who's doing like your electric down there and stuff like that?
Who's the mics from?
Mics are on.
Yeah, they're union. Look on the down in Radnor. We just do check the phone and see if we open the book.
So we're broadcasting, but we're not up on the
Who's HVAC?
Carter McCann.
overhead.
And who's
They're
plumbing?
non-union. Plumbing is IT Landis. IT Landis?
I used to use
Think of the connection.
I used to use Reynolds a lot. They were at Lancaster County, but they used to do a ton of my plumbing for me. Really
Go that. She's amazing.
love those guys. HVAC used almost all union guys. So it was just easier.
The sheetman leader has an alpha. So, whatever.
They always want to have it out for everybody. Trust me. They're not as bad as IBW, but
Well, downtown, in Philly, like, it's a big and so they can eat it or they can't, whatever. A lot of times, we go out and say, hey, listen, it's like, we invited you guys to bid, and it wasn't even that our numbers were too much, but it all.
right.
You want us to do about it? Yeah, Carter, we end up with a rat outside. Now it's not an actual picket.
Yeah.
It's just like a protest. They're just out on the street corner for a few hours every morning fighting.
Yeah, they had the better King of Prussia from that shop building they did there. The multi-color glass panels.
That's an it's a beautiful.
My office was right behind Marty.
Good.
Yeah, so
Running.
one of my best HVAC guys.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to note tonight's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township's YouTube channel. As a reminder, the public comment process follows these rules. Speakers will need to identify themselves and the municipality prior to speaking. Speakers are encouraged to include their street name. Groups, businesses, or organizations are encouraged to designate one person to present on their behalf. Residents and taxpayers of other municipalities are asked to give Euclid Township residents and taxpayers an opportunity to provide public comment first. Comments should be directed to the commission, members, and not to the township staff or the applicant. As a reminder, public comment is not an opportunity for questions and answers. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to give their comments. A countdown timer will be displayed to help speakers monitor their time. Speakers may not use signs, props, advertisements, or video while providing comments. Speakers should limit repetitive comments and, when appropriate, simple acknowledge agreement with the previous speaker's comment or position. While the public has a right to make critical remarks, the public does not have the right to disrupt meetings. In the case of serious disruption, the meeting may be adjourned or other actions taken to resolve the disruption. As the meeting is subject to recording, a speaker's voice may be recorded and publicly broadcast, and their name and municipality may appear in the minutes of the meeting. All right, thank you. With that, I welcome everyone to tonight's April 15th, 2026 special meeting of the Euclid Township Planning Commission. I ask everyone to please rise so we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And with that, we'll get started. Tonight, we have Rockwell, Downingtown, LLC, Lionville Preserve, tentative PRD plan and ordinance discussion for recommendation. Do I have someone to present for them?
My name is Greg Lingo. I'm the owner of Rockwell Development Group, who's the equitable owner of these properties. I thought that we could benefit a little bit by just doing a little bit of a kind of history of where this project has been since the time that we've put it under agreement. If Bobby has a chance, probably don't have the ability to put it up there, right? Okay, yeah, no problem. In the fall of 2024, our entity, Rockwell Downingtown LLC, in working with the Downingtown School District, who's the current owner, put this property under agreement for development. In February of 2025, we submitted a by right conditional use plan, which was approximately 1.8 million square feet of industrial warehouses, industrial
Recording
flex.
in progress.
After submitting that plan, we were encouraged to come back with some type of an active adult residential plan. So between that time of submitting the by right plan till today, we've held 108 meetings with stakeholders, neighbors, township staff. And I will say that each of those meetings have resulted in tweaks to the plan that have made the plan better than when we started. We initially started our first draft of an active adult residential plan was 733 units. The staff did a good job of kind of beating down the density a little bit on that before we came in front of the Planning Commission. So back in June of last year, we came in front of the Planning Commission really to get feedback. It was informal, but public. And the idea was, okay, we have this conditional use plan or we have this active adult plan. Let's have feedback from not only the Planning Commission, but also from the residents and other stakeholders to see which plan they would like us, what path they'd like us to take. There was a lot of good back and forth from that meeting. At that time, we had an active adult plan in June of 25 that was 636 units. As a result of that plan, the overwhelming feedback, over 85% of the folks said that they would prefer the active adult plan over the warehouse plan. But there was other things that they suggested. Reducing the size of the natatorium, just to take a step back. As part of our deal with Downingtown School District, we agreed that a portion of the property we would cause a natatorium or swimming facility to be built, and Downingtown School District students would have priority at lanes and that kind of stuff. So one of the things that came out of the June meeting, the feedback that we got was that the natatorium should be smaller, that we needed to get a connection to Haywood Drive. At the time, we had no connection to Haywood Drive. That there, instead of the low-income housing that we had on the plan, people would like to swap that out with more open space, and that the active adult plan was the way that people wanted to go. So then, following that meeting, we then kind of marched towards making that plan better, that active adult plan. We did put under agreement another property that's adjacent. It was owned by Eli Kahn. We put that property under agreement so that we could have a connection of Haywood Drive and east-west connection connecting to Lionville Station Road. We reduced the size of the natatorium. We reduced the number of homes. We removed the apartments. And we then came back to resubmit the plan that's in front of you now, which on the Downingtown School District parcel has 551 units. On Eli Kahn's parcel, there's 30 units. And I will say that our deal with Downingtown School District is that the property that we're purchasing from them, if it does go residential, it would be active adult to lessen the burden on schools and other and other burdens that the traffic and that kind of, and the like. The piece that we're purchasing from Eli doesn't necessarily have to have that restriction, but we're happy if it does. We're kind of indifferent on that. So we were able to reduce the plan from after submitting the by right plan, we reduced the plan by 182 units to where we are today. We've negotiated conceptually a framework where the township would purchase essentially development rights or an easement area, and the French and Pickering Creek folks would manage that easement area so that when you're driving up Lionville Station Road, that it'll continue with that nice kind of pastoral setting. We feel like the changes that we've made, I've had the question, is this the best possible plan? And I'm definitely here to tell you that you've gotten our best effort at making this the best plan by incorporating as much of the feedback as we could from others. We were really committed to understanding what people wanted and didn't want. Now, the property eventually is going to be developed, whether it's by me or someone else. But we really feel like we've been able to take in this feedback and come before you with a plan that also has strong alignment with Euclid Township's comprehensive plan. We feel like there's conservation of natural and scenic resources. In this plan, we have over 130 acres of open space. When we were first meeting with the Save Lionville Farms folks and other neighbors, the goal was, hey, if there's any way that we can save 100 acres toward open space, that would have been really a huge accomplishment, and we feel like we've surpassed that. We feel like we're going to be improving circulation for vehicles with the connection to Haywood, circulation for pedestrians. We have over 1 mile of a chip trail that goes along kind of the preserve area. We also have running along Lionville Station Road for pedestrians, a 6-foot wide path, the length of the property ownership. We're also interior in the community. We have a network of sidewalks, and after the feedback that we received from this board, we included sidewalks on both sides of the street, among other trails. In working next door with the Milky Way Farms folks, we agreed to a buffer of 300 feet between our new home property lines and the property line with Milky Way Farms. The original code was 150 feet. We've agreed to install a deer fence along the entire property, a vegetative berm and landscaping, as well as some other things that we talked through. One that was really important, we've agreed in our future homeowners association documents to have a deed notice to buyers that there is an active farm next door, so they can't come back at some point in the future and say nobody ever disclosed to us that there's smells or sites or anything like that would be of concern. We feel that this senior housing definitely generates a net positive fiscal benefit, but you have people that are moving here with disposable income. They're going to boost the retail and service businesses, related businesses in the area. Since the time that we've been working with French and Pickering Creek, we've now hired Wild Bird Designscapes and Danilo Mayfie Landscape Design to work directly with French and Pickering Creek on this easement area to make sure that meadow comes in properly and that we're properly ridding the invasives that are kind of in that area now so that we can restore that to the way it was meant to be. And we've also agreed to have the homes built with Energy Star certification.
Thanks, Greg. Lou Colagreco, counsel for the applicant, and I think the chair accurately stated in the beginning what we're here for tonight, and that would be a recommendation on the proposed. This is a two-prong application. One is an ordinance amendment to allow this to happen by creating a planned residential district on this property. We've modified the ordinance probably 2 or 3 times since its original inception in responding to comments received. And the other prong of it is the actual plan. In a PRD, you have tentative plans and final plans as opposed to preliminary plans and final plans. I don't know why the legislature made that change in terminology, but the township wanted to process both together, i.e. the ordinance amendment. Presumably they wanted to see the tentative plans so they could see what they would be getting or what the township would be getting if in fact the ordinance amendment were passed. So we look forward to leaving here tonight because there's some issues with a recommendation one way or the other, but there are issues we think now that have to be subject to the public hearing process before the supervisors, and they have to weigh in as to ultimately what this plan is going to look like. So we're able to have whatever conversation you want to have tonight. However, Mr. Chairman, you want to direct the meeting. If you want us to, I would say walk through the plan, but that might be a little bit difficult to do visually. Greg did a pretty good job with the narrative. We'll proceed at your direction.
Okay. Well, we'll see how we're coming with our direction.
Tara's printing plans.
She's printing
She went
plans.
upstairs to try to take some hard copies. I assume you guys don't have hard copies?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, let's be patient and see if we can come up with a quick solution here, everyone.
Are they able to see online? Are they able to see it online at least?
I have no idea
Yeah.
what he's able to see. What can I move?
Wasn't working Monday night either, so didn't fix it between Monday and tonight. They didn't even fix it. Real counterpart to our staff.
I'm just rereading this. So. Projector's never been a problem.
Should we hang it up on the wall?
We have a plotter.
I was just curious. What's that?
So that's all it is, it's the projector won't relay?
Does the projector does it require a feed from the laptop for the projector to turn on? Okay, I was gonna say like you could try rebooting your laptop. I know you don't want to pull this feed.
He's like,
But is that might be worth it and just announce we could
Everyone,
announce
please,
it and
please
then
be
restart
patient.
it?
We'll have something together in a couple minutes. All right? Please be patient. Yes.
There it goes.
Oh, it's
It's
going
on.
on.
It's on.
just in time for somebody to hit like
It's on. There you go.
IT guy. How exciting.
The little things. What's that? Probably. Is that what that board is? I didn't know what that board did.
Used to be have a camera on top of it. An overhead projector.
Yeah.
Did Tara just print that out? Did she just print that out on the plotter?
Transparency.
The math teachers would use it. Nobody else would use it. The math teacher and the history teacher, because they were old guys.
It's nice if you could put a sheet on there and you got some green pencil. Market stuff.
What's the PowerPoint?
It's great for when it's collaborative.
That said it's this far. Oh, yeah. Presentation.
Okay, I think we've crisis averted here. The first plan that we are showing here was the conditional use plan that was submitted in February 2025. And then from that, we evolved into this next plan was the 733. Oh no, this is our current. This is where we've gotten to. So we'll stay on this for a little bit. This section up here is a different parcel, and that is where we are connecting to Haywood Drive. So you have this kind of east-west connection. This area all along here that I'm outlining is the area that we've agreed with the township would be conserved, and it'll be protected by the Friendship Pickering Creek Trust. The other significant changes that this plan has endured is this is the 300-foot buffer between Milky Way Farms and the property. We'll also run this deer fence the length of the Since the time of submission to this, we've also met a couple of the neighbors up here, and we've agreed to little things like this basin. This is not a fully engineered plan at this point. It's a conceptual plan, but we've agreed that this basin, rather than having to remove trees that are backing up to a couple properties here, we could slide the basin closer to and take it underneath the cul-de-sac here and save some of the tree buffer. We've also agreed to some additional landscape berm along here. Since the time of last summer's submission, we've also agreed to take the natatorium used to be over here along the turnpike, and we've moved it over here next to the tractor supply. There's also some environmental things throughout here that we've talked about with neighbors that have made this plan better. We've agreed to do a monarch way station in this area to help them through their flight path, which really comes right over this property. There's a tupelo tree right around here that we're saving, and we've worked around some open space. We've had it inspected by our arborist and feels that it's really viable and it's in good shape. We've agreed to renovate. There's a old house here that's historic and the silo, and then there's a house here that's historic. We're going to be renovating those. And to reduce confusion, we've agreed to take them back to residential units. If there's another use that they become later on, we would have to come back and submit something new if we were to do something different there. Along this riparian buffer here, we're going to be putting a chip trail that is ADA compliant. There's an area here where the public could park and then kind of walk along the trail. There's another area here to park and a trailhead down here to traverse the trail. There's also resulting from our last planning commission meeting. The suggestion was to have additional trails, so we have a little bit of a footpath along here, and then we have sidewalks throughout on both sides of the property.
All right. You pointed out some of the good things. The walking trails, are they macadam or are they, you say, wood chips?
So the trails that are along the creek are going to be wood chips. And we've worked with the township engineer, and our engineer have worked with where DEP has suggested how they can be ADA compliant. So we're committed to doing that. The other walking trail, there's a 6-foot sidewalk essentially that goes north-south here along the home side of Lionville Station Road. That'll be macadam. And then this walking path here, we envisioned that as a chip trail as well. The rest of it would be sidewalks.
While we're on the topic of sidewalks, I do have a question. Getting to that shopping center, as far as like commerce, commercial, retail, would there be a easy path to get to that?
So there is this sidewalk continues down and connects to the shopping
It's connected.
center. Yeah.
All right. That brings us to the things that you've changed to upgrade it. Where are the single families and where are their townhouses, correct?
Yeah, there are a combination. There's 2 different size single family detached homes and then 2 different types of single family attached carriage homes. By these color schemes, the kind of orangish and pinkish would be the attached, and then the rest of them would be singles. So they're interspersed throughout.
Okay. I'm trying to think of which direction we want to go first to,
So I just have a couple of topics that you already started to cover. So regarding the chip trail, the majority of the pathways on the property are going to be the chip product, the wood chips, right? Aside from the 6 foot asphalt
Yeah,
that goes
only
north-south.
the chip will only be around this area that's kind of this.
But
apparently
as far
it's-
as mileage goes, that's the majority of the trail area, right? Aside from the asphalt.
with the exception, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar. I've seen chip trails. Are they? Can you maintain them in the winter for snow removal if that's the majority of the walking path? Okay. You also mentioned the 2 historical properties. I know in the June special meeting that we had, there was an individual that came and talked about a type of business producing honey. Is that no longer in play for the one property?
It's not as part of this current submission.
Okay.
We're happy to work with them to make that happen, but we thought that it was confusing the issue a little bit. Right now, they're residential units.
Okay. That was it.
What's the purpose of the deer fence all along there restricting the wildlife from traveling across areas that has historically traveled across?
That was one of the requests by our neighbor that we felt like we could easily
So you
accommodate.
have a deer fence all the way up and it's just stop, so you could drive everything up,
It would go up
the north
here
of
and
the
then
property.
return here.
and then the other area drives all the deer onto the turnpike.
We don't have a fence around the property here.
Right. So they can get right on the turnpike.
As they
You've enclosed an area of 100 acres with nothing in it except wildlife. Now wildlife can't go anywhere else. You understand that,
Yeah,
right?
other than through here.
Other than through the sidewalks and driveways of the residences. Okay.
Yes, it-
I mean, if you've been on 202 or the turnpike rather down Valley Forge, you've seen what a slaughterhouse that is at times. Because the deer are getting driven on, because of development down there, Chesterbrook and all that have driven the deer onto the turnpike.
Yeah, appreciate the concern.
You mentioned trails on that buffer.
That was a result of the feedback that we received here last time to try to get some kind of additional walking
And that
trail.
is that before the buffer or within the buffer?
It's on our property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm assuming the homeowners association is going to maintain the walkways and the open space and all that?
Correct. And part of the homeowners association documentation that we're working with French and Pickering Creek is also going to be the maintenance of how this meadow and conserved area will be handled. So that'll be spelled out as well.
Is the Hayward connection, is that a township road or a private road?
We've had that discussion back and forth a little bit. I believe we're leaving it private here based on the direction that we've received from staff. Some of the feedback that we received last summer and the last time that we met was to try to do some kind of speed dampening in here. So we do have some call them islands.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. One of the early versions of the plan, the pathway wasn't a straight shot from
Correct.
Lionville Station out to Township Line, and I liked it from the standpoint it calms the traffic. Having to make multiple stops, multiple turns, you'll have less high-speed runs.
Yes.
As people are trying to clip the 113, 100.
You
corner.
now have these islands in here so that as you're driving, you have to slow down in order to navigate it. And then we lined up the driveways properly here so that people could come out of their driveways easy enough and make a right or a left. This circle here didn't have to be a circle. It could have been a four-way traffic stop, but we felt like that was another way to kind of slow down traffic. And also we feel like it's, visually better.
If it is a private road, would the HOA or the residents of the community have the option to add additional traffic calming measures in the future, like speed humps, if it became a problem?
I think, yeah, if anything became a problem, the residents could make changes,
Okay.
subject to approval,
Sure.
township.
So since we're on the topic of that, what is the road widths? And I was reading all different stuff. There's some parallel parking. I mean, I guess we're probably going to jump around to here a little bit tonight, but we just try to cover our bases. You know, where are I read a lot of things. We got fire, ambulance. We need specific, you know, we need wide enough roads. Those dividers you were talking about to slow traffic down, I'm not sure how they work for emergency services. Kind of like that, if you can enlighten me on some of the traffic. Parking, parallel parking, off-street parking. You know, if people buy one of these places and they have, and I'm just shooting it out there, they only have a driveway for 2 cars, what happens when their company comes? They can't park a half mile down the road to park and have their company walk up, so
Yeah.
go ahead, you can.
Yeah, good questions. Rick Stratton, Chester Valley Engineers. There is some parallel parking proposed along some of these north and south streets that do not have homes on them. There's also guest parking spaces kind of sprinkled throughout the site. Each home will have driveway parking for 2 cars in the driveway and also garage parking. As a homeowner myself, I know sometimes the garage, there's no room for a car in there. So we do have guest parking and other parking available, and it's spread out throughout the site.
The driveways in the houses, I'm assuming they're large enough, I didn't read in all this, for oversized vehicles or somewhat larger vehicles that we have nowadays?
Yes.
Pickup trucks and all that are...
Yes, each home or each garage will be at least 25 feet away from the sidewalk.
And then I guess since we're on traffic, I'm going to keep going. So what's our, this is one of my big pet peeves too. We really got you're talking 500 and some homes. So I know it's 55 and over and all that, but those people are going to go in and out. And what are we doing to improve those intersections at Township Line Road and 100 and 113 and Lionville Station? Because Lionville Station and both those intersections right now are already a mess, if you want to know the truth. So we add 500 more homes, we got to figure out what to do to make it better.
Good evening, Eric Ostomchuk with Traffic Planning and Design. We've been interfacing with your township traffic engineer, and since our last meeting, we've had a meeting and some feedback from PennDOT as well. So I'll simply lay out the improvements that we've identified to this point. Certainly, we'd have to go through a permitting process with the township and PennDOT in that regard. With regard to Lionville Station Road and Route 113, it is anticipated that we would add capacity on Lionville Station Road by proposing widening to add an additional right turn lane. It's very similar to what you see currently at Cherie Boulevard that was recently constructed at that location, because everyone, for the most part, is driven towards Route 100, Turnpike, all the retail to that end. That was submitted and reviewed preliminarily by PennDOT. Your township traffic engineer has seen it as well. No substantial comments. We anticipate moving forward with that improvement. Due to the connection of Haywood over to Route 100, there was an improvement identified in the Upper Euclid capital improvement plan at that location as you're traveling northbound on Route 100 to provide a right turn lane onto East Township Line Road. And the applicant will agree to do that. Certainly, we'd have to design it, get it permitted through PennDOT as well, so we'll coordinate with PennDOT on that. Additionally, over 113 and 401, we're going to be identifying some signal upgrades that can be done there. There's a lot of different operational characteristics of that intersection with regard to the traffic signals that we think that we can fix a few of those at least with this development. So that's kind of the off-site roadway improvement. We mentioned the roundabout internally and the traffic calming for the connection as well.
How does 2 right turn lanes work at Lionville Station Road? Are they both no right turn except on a green light, or is the right-hand one right on red, or are they both right on red?
They typically would be signed for no right turn on red. For a right turn, and you may see this a lot of places, I think it's implemented at Cherie. So as you're traveling eastbound on 113 and making a left on the Lionville Station Road, you get an advanced arrow to make that turn. During that time, you can allow the right turns to turn out of Lionville Station Road from both lanes, in addition to the time that the green ball would be indicated for Lionville Station for the lefts to get out.
Right.
So it essentially doubles the capacity of the right turn movement coming out of Lionville Station Road. And I want to note that it's not necessarily operationally, it certainly adds capacity and allows more traffic to flow through the intersection. The biggest concern we were seeing was the vehicle queue on Lionville Station Road as people are waiting to get out onto 113. So providing that additional capacity lessens that queue and doesn't impact the office driveways that are on the, south side of Lionville Station Road, as well as, helps to, vacate that queue for the Tractor Supply driveway as well. But again, that's a design element we'd have to work out with PennDOT and input from your township traffic engineer as well.
So regarding the additional right turn lane onto Township Line Road from northbound 100, there is a good number of trucks, semi-tractor trailers that go from Route 100 onto East Township Line Road. Not so much down Haywood, although I suppose with some of the warehouses there, they could now. Frequently, those trucks can't make the turn as is. So by forcing them closer to Township Line Road, it requires an even tighter turn. I'll let you respond to that.
No,
I
know exactly what you're talking about because
Yeah.
It's interesting when the Township Line Road used to be a straight road and then Route 100 and then they had the intersection, so it's a skewed intersection, which is not ideal. We looked at it preliminarily, and fortunately on that, call it southeast corner, the acute triangle portion of it is mostly right of way with regard to PennDOT. So what we can do, and we haven't designed it yet by any means, but you can get into that right turn lane and provide a more sweeping area for trucks to make that turn.
Okay.
And it may even be disjointed, so to speak, from where Township Line is today. There may be an island between those movements. Again, we'd have to look at that, but it would certainly need to be designed for a WB67, which is the largest truck that you would see on the roadways.
Okay.
And then we have 5 more intersections off property that our neighbors in Upper Euclid Township and West Pikeland have already expressed their concerns about. And just to be aware of it, and probably some people here are going to speak to that as well. But understand that this impacts a lot of intersections, not just the 2 that you see on the drawing.
Do you know what percentage of trips are projected to go not to 113 down south, but up to Haywood and to Byers?
Into Byers, yes, it's a minimal amount comparatively. I can see what we've evaluated in our study. Again, reviewed preliminarily by PennDOT as well as your township traffic engineer. Let me get to my percentage here. So we're looking at, so it's looking at about 5% of the traffic. It may, 5 to 10% would go to the north up to 401, as we're anticipating. And that's during a peak hour type of operation, which is what we evaluated, your rush hours, commuter peak hours.
Doesn't sound like a lot.
It's certainly not.
What's the basis of that then?
It's a combination of things. It's where the retail centers are, where the people are commuting if they do work 55 plus. Obviously a lot of that traffic is destined for Route 100, Route 113, the Turnpike. Certainly going. So it's a matter of existing travel patterns as well as what generators you have in different areas. And in this area, everyone's aware Route 100 is the destination for the most part that people are looking to.
Okay. In your background traffic projections that went into the analysis, what assumptions did you make with regards to Happy Days Farm?
Well, I believe that was approved for 2.1 million square feet of warehouse, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm assuming that is what we have in there. It is, 1.9 million square feet of distribution warehouse space.
So how was that incorporated into the traffic analysis?
That was incorporated based on the traffic study that was completed for that site, was incorporated as background traffic into this traffic study.
It was, okay.
Yes. As well as 7 other developments that
Okay.
have not been constructed or occupied.
So I guess to take a step further, are you proposing, are you saying you're working with PennDOT on those other intersections like 113 and 401? And who and what and where will be responsible if we do need to make improvements?
But
For overall.
as the applicant, they're interfacing with PennDOT. They will, take on those improvements that are identified through that process. That was the suggestion of your township staff, was to, get a meeting with PennDOT, get this in front of them, particularly with the intersection of 113 and Lionville Station Road, to get their feedback on that conceptual layout. But they provided feedback with regard to the traffic study and the area intersections. Those were the 2 intersections that they identified, 113 and 401, Township Line and Route 100.
I have a couple questions about traffic, I guess, back looking inside the property. So you were requesting a waiver to the less than required 250-foot minimum for your curves. Can you just point out where that is on here, and is there street parking in and around those? I mean, my concern would be if you have a tighter curve and there's street parking, might be a visual issue for people.
Yeah, okay, good question. Yeah, there's a curve right here that I'm pointing to on the screen that's less than the 250-foot radius. We made sure that any street parking doesn't interfere with a vehicle trying to make that turn. These are low-speed streets, 25 miles per hour, and there's, I believe there's another one. Just trying to find. I think in here we're less than 250 as well.
So there's no street parking allowed around that curve?
Not along that curve. Yeah,
Okay.
once you get to the straightaways, then we have some parallel parking.
Okay. And then my other question was about the driveway length. Did you say 25 feet was the average driveway length?
So the distance, the minimum distance, the shortest distance between a garage and the edge of sidewalk, this is
Okay.
not the road, but the edge of sidewalk is 25 feet.
What's that number based off of? Where'd you get 25 feet from?
Per the suggestion of township staff, I think at one point last June, we may have had 20.
Okay.
And there was a concern that larger vehicles might, the end of that vehicle might disrupt pedestrian travel in the
Yeah.
sidewalk. So we made it 25.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just did a quick Google search, and it said, I just said average U.S. Car length, and it said 14.7 feet. So if you have 2 cars in that driveway that are average, now you maybe even be sticking out onto the road.
The
at
2
that.
cars in each driveway are side by side.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand. So
Yes.
not tandem, side by side.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm going to bring up a topic this is more for the township and more for the record, but long-term thinking, sustainability, public transportation. Yukon Township is not known for public transportation, but there is a bus line that goes from Eagle View down to the train station, and our residents, seniors, get free SEPTA. So is there any way that us as a township, us as a community could think about that as far as, we're creating a traffic, this is like a traffic creator. So I would love it if us as a community could think about that. Could we get a bus in there?
Unfortunately, SEPTA actually just announced that they're cutting our bus service in this
Crap.
project.
Sorry.
Thanks, Bob.
I mean, is that it's lack of ridership? I don't know, I just feel like we can't give up.
Yeah.
We can't give up. And that could change. Like, we could look back 20 years from now being like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Kosuch with Bowman, Township Traffic Engineer. So I just wanted to chime in, add a little more context and a little more information to what Eric was talking about, and everything he said, was correct, and a lot of good questions, appropriate questions, I think, coming from the board here, from the commission. But so we did get, and as he said, the applicant was, willing and agreeable to go to PennDOT. Their driveway accesses to their property do not need PennDOT approval, right? They don't connect to or open up to a PennDOT road, but it's these off-site improvements that are PennDOT related. So at Lionville Station and 113, that's at a PennDOT intersection with a traffic signal. PennDOT oversees all traffic signal permits, as well as, of course, the roadway there and the right-of-way of 113, and then at 401 and 113, and up at Route 100 and Township Line Road. So PennDOT, anything that goes on there, as stated, PennDOT will be involved in. So part of the process, and we had that meeting in February, and part of the PennDOT process is to go through kind of what they call a scoping application. So the applicant submitted a bunch of information to PennDOT, and about a month ago, PennDOT issued their preliminary comments, and that's a lot of what Eric was discussing. But I just wanted to fill in a few more of the blanks. PennDOT did talk about the fact that, they're pretty good about working with the municipalities, so they made it clear that, of course, anything that goes on, Euclid has to be involved in. And they also said they want Upper Euclid and West Pikeland to be included, in this process, and that the applicant should. I'm reading from their comments. The applicant should also consider review comments from Upper Euclid Township and West Pikeland, and address as appropriate. Which those two townships have issued some comments and concerns. Let's see here. Just kind of, I highlighted some things. It's 2 pages of very small text, but the department said, reading from the letter, the department is generally in concurrence with the concept plan for Lionville Station and 113. So they've weighed in and said that double right turn concept, PennDOT is generally in agreement with that concept. The department generally concurs with the findings of the traffic impact study, except as noted in comments below. And they list a few things that they wanted to be investigated further. And some of those things have been talked about and acknowledged and are included in our letter that you've all read already. But they state that they concur with our letter. PennDOT concurs with our letter. They did state that they recommend that the applicant assess, propose, and implement some level of mitigation for these 2 intersections, being 401 and 113 and Route 100 and Township Line Road. So they're saying for those 2 intersections, assess, propose, and implement some level of mitigation for these 2 intersections prior to the development being built, rather than solely waiting to react to issues occurring after it is built. And what they've stated here tonight, I believe they've said they're willing to do that. Let's see here. Let's see, that addresses that. They did bring up the bridge replacement work on 401. That I guess that's where between 113 and Byers, right? It's in that section. Mm-hmm. So PennDOT brought that up, and they are basically asking for more analysis, depending on the timing of that project and their project, of the 2 projects. If that bridge is closed by the time this opens, they want to know ahead of time how that's going to affect traffic if that bridge is closed. So that's something that PennDOT asked for the applicant to look at. That hasn't been done yet. PennDOT asked for a couple of additional intersections to be added, 113 and Gordon Drive and 113 and Davis Road. They want crash information. PennDOT wants 5-year crash information for each of these intersections to look at safety. It's a pretty standard thing they do. They also brought up, they said, quote, address safety concerns at the skewed/unconventional intersection of Byers Road and Lionville Station Road. That's the comment. No more direction, no more, nothing like we want a study looking at this specific improvement or that specific improvement or address this specific issue. It's just a general comment, address safety concerns at that intersection, which has come up, for years, right?
That intersection is the traffic common.
Right.
Right.
And then PennDOT also threw in, ensure that there is adequate sight distance at the intersection of Byers Road and Conestoga Road, 401. I'll admit, I don't know exactly what the concern might be there, but
It's not a great distance.
Yeah, it's stop controlled.
Traffic signal is going to have to be put there eventually, I'm sure. If the development gets built.
So those are some additional, just so we're all aware and you're aware that PennDOT did weigh in on this. When we had the meeting back in February, they were very appreciative that this was brought to their attention. They don't like to get caught off guard with, oh, you've already approved something, and now PennDOT's stuck dealing with what the township has approved and can only do so much. So they're in and bought into this, and they want to make sure that their roadway network continues to work well as a part of this. But, like I said, generally they agreed with the findings in the study. They generally agreed with the concept plans of what's being proposed. So I think overall it was a positive review from PennDOT, but, requiring some additional stuff for the applicant to look at.
It's a foot in the door.
Yeah.
Who foots the bill for that? Does PennDOT foot the bill, or does the builder have to foot the bill for some of those improvements?
To do all that stuff?
Yeah.
Well, typically it's the applicant related to development work. I mean, I've seen, we've seen different scenarios over the years. I mean, there are grants and, different things that you can apply for, and companies, developers can apply for, townships can apply for, et cetera.
Because probably half the people sitting here know that all those intersections we're talking about are issues right now. So that's why there's a big concern about that.
Sure, yeah.
And we can't expect just PennDOT to decide to do it, and maybe their time frame is not quick enough to get it done for safety.
Yeah, it wouldn't
would that
be.
have to be done before it goes in?
It could be. It's often part of the township approval process that those conditions are in there related to those improvements. Before they could either open the site, occupy the site, or a certain percentage of the site, whatever it is, whatever the agreement ends up being, the approval ends up being. But it wouldn't be what I'll call a typical PennDOT quote-unquote project, where the money is on the 12-year transportation improvement plan. It goes through what's called the highway occupancy permit process. So anytime there's private work, municipal work done on a state road, you have to apply to PennDOT for the HOP to get approval to do that work, and then it's funded by whoever is doing the work. It's not a PennDOT job.
Gotcha.
That might take 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm concerned, that it's, we got to worry about now and in the future, just not as of today, but we have to worry about today also. Okay, I'm looking over some of my, now back to traffic and parking and all that for the natatorium. Give me a little quick heads up on what's going on with that. Do we have enough parking? They're talking about busing people in, backing up to another phase we got to get into. That's going to add more stress on our police department, because we're going to have a lot of traffic, and not to be smart, we're going to have traffic, we're going to have accidents. and then it's just gonna put a strain on them. Along with the 500 some homes in Natatorium is, so, can you enlighten me a little bit on that?
Yeah, I can talk about the parking provided at the natatorium site. There are 500 parking spaces proposed, where I think the code requires 494 based on the size of the building. There will be special events on occasion, and we don't know exactly the nature of those, but I think swim meets, they don't all occur in a 1 hour window. It's over a full day. And I think the idea is to create a traffic management plan for those special events and agree to some management criteria with the township on exactly how that is done.
Okay.
The natatorium's gone smaller, correct?
Yes, the natatorium is, I believe, 74,000 square feet now. I don't recall the size it was a year ago, but it was much larger.
Oh, I thought it was way smaller than that.
What is the acreage of the parcel that the natatorium sits on?
It's just under 8 acres. It's 7.97, I think.
Okay. With parking, right?
With parking, yes.
I have not reviewed the draft ordinance, but it does talk about limiting to 4 special events per calendar year. Does the ordinance provide a definition for what is a special event?
Yeah, it does. It says a special event is an event where anticipated parking demand may exceed the parking otherwise required for the natatorium use. So the operator of the natatorium, it's a school district, if it's a school district, if it's a private operation, they would have to come to the township, project, hey, we've got this tournament, whatever they call them, coming up this weekend or next month, and we know that we will need more than 500 spaces. They get to do that 4 times a year.
Okay. Is there any
Additionally, we have negotiated with Downingtown School District that they would allow one of their properties to be the area where people could park and then bus over from.
And
the operator would be responsible for submitting a plan that would work for the township and police and navigating that bus system.
does the cost of the township police, is that a township expense, or is that the natatorium management covers that expense?
Typically, the event covers the cost of the supervision.
That's part of the permitting, okay.
So any event that doesn't require more than 500 spaces, they can have one every day. Now, your special event is over 500 spaces. 490 spaces is not a special event. So they could have 490 spaces used every day, 24 hours a day.
Theoretically, if the demand was there, if the demand was there for that type of
Trying to
use,
get a full understanding, and everybody else to get a full understanding of what we're looking at.
Are there operating hour limitations placed on the natatorium?
There aren't in the ordinance, but that could be nailed down. I mean, I think that the folks we talked with did suggest something, but I just don't have that available with me. But that would be a typical condition, I would think, of any approval, hours of operation.
Understanding that there's a dearth of swimming facilities, at least by definition from the school district's point of view.
Yeah.
Much like there was a dearth of ice time at one point in time. Ice rinks ran 24 hours a day. And we have one in the township that did. So is this going to be the same thing with this? And are we going to, there's a lot of stuff that seems to be later.
Well, that,
got to evaluate later.
yeah.
Now, let's evaluate now.
If the hours of operation are a concern, like I said, when it gets before, I mean, there can certainly be, that's up to the township. I mean, that's, if you say the hours of operation shall be between X and X, then that's what they are. So that can be determined now. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't work, that doesn't work for the operator. I mean, you're right. The natatorium is an interesting creature, and that's a perfect example of a condition I would think the township would want to impose to prevent 24/7 operation.
Yeah, understanding that Euclid Township bears a large portion of the school district facilities already.
No, I
An
hear
overly
you.
large portion. And for them to foist one more thing on us feels somewhat unfair.
Who is operating the natatorium? Is that you guys or is that the school district?
Neither,
HOA?
actually. Yeah, no, neither. We've contracted with a group called Phil Aquatics that they're professionals in the space, and they would be the ones that would build it, own it, and then manage it.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking with Greg, I mean, part of the issue here, and one of the reasons we want to advance this to the supervisors, is we understand that there's some concern that not everybody's on board with the natatorium. Let's put on the table. I mean,
There's some people
you know,
that love it,
for
and
the
some
reasons that,
Mm-hmm.
for reasons you just said, and maybe there's 5 other reasons or 10 other reasons. So we've drafted this such that it can happen. It's not required to happen. It's shown on the plan, but that's why we're going through this process. We would expect you to make a recommendation to the board on that issue, and whatever your recommendation is, you know, we'll have to live with.
It was, sorry, go ahead.
Whatever the board decides, we'll have to live with us.
Question though, if we're at that, when we're talking about the traffic, when you did your analysis without natatorium, are there differences? Sorry, it was you.
Our analysis only incorporates the natatorium traffic as a conservative. We didn't look
Right.
at it without it. Obviously, it would be less.
From a prior meeting, it was my understanding that the natatorium was part of and contingent on selling the property. Are we saying now that that is not necessarily the case?
It's in our agreement with Downingtown School District that we would cause this to be constructed. But as Mr. Colagreco mentioned, if your recommendation to the board is we recommend this plan, but we recommend it without an natatorium, then that's something that we would have to go back to the school district with.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was my question. Because, yeah, I was under the impression that it was a done deal that it had to be there. So.
It's in our agreement, and our agreement is public. We've amended the agreement once so far. And
So maybe we can work a little bit there. Okay.
I don't want to go too far down the like what if path, but like if the natatorium didn't happen, like what then would happen with that? You know, what is it, 8 acres or whatever of land?
we would not add additional units, nor would we add a different use. We would spread out more open space throughout. We would add a pocket park in that area around the Tupelo tree. So we'd just kind of have the community breathe a little bit more with more open space and green space, but it would not be additional units.
Thank you.
Good answer.
When we're talking about that potential spacing, can you remind us the decision for where the community center is? Because it does seem far from other like the lower end of the property. Could you remind us the design for that from the community standpoint?
So the question is, this area here we have dedicated for this community's recreation amenities, indoor, outdoor facilities. And we felt that it was here going to be easiest for folks to get to it from kind of both all sides of the property. So it is about halfway in the middle of it. And that was based on our planner's advice as well as our engineers.
Okay.
What's all included in that section?
I can tell you what's not included is outdoor pickleball. That was loud and clear.
Answer,
We understand it.
Thanks for working.
Andrew, can you touch on what's included in that area?
Yeah, so typically in within the actual building, common gathering building, you'll have a fitness area, sometimes a conference room that people can rent out, sort of a little kitchenette if someone wants to rent it for parties, those kinds of things.
And then on the outside, you would have a pool and then just some recreation space. But as Greg mentioned, definitely not pickleball.
What kind of parking is available at the clubhouse?
I believe there's about 80 spaces in a parking lot right in the front of the clubhouse. And then there's also some parallel parking on the streets enveloping the clubhouse. So overall, maybe 120, 130 spaces total.
Okay. Just a stupid question, then what's the capacity of the pool?
Hasn't been
No,
designed
you don't
yet.
have to answer that. That was just a silly question. All right.
Hey, Rick, I think you're overestimating. I don't think that was 80. I think, at least my notes had that as like a 43 space lot in front of there, but I could be wrong. I just don't want you to misinterpret that.
You are correct, Dan. I stand corrected. So 43 parking spaces in front, and I don't have an exact count for the parallel spaces enveloping the property. I could probably figure it out here in a minute or two. Another 30 spaces enveloping the site, so total of about 73 in the vicinity.
Okay, just trying to get some ideas.
Yep.
I guess we got kind of all that covered. Kind of jumping around a little bit. Where are we with stormwater and sewer? Just a quick, I saw somewhere there's like going to be pump houses located throughout.
Yeah.
Where are they at, and what do they create noise and everything? And so, go ahead.
I'll touch on stormwater first. There's about 30 stormwater facilities proposed as part of the plan. 4 of them are surface basins. One of them is a rather significant surface basin. Do you have the pointer? There will be a surface basin right here, right up against the open space. There are other surface basins in the development as well. Everything else will be underground basins. So under the natatorium parking lot, there'll be a underground system. And there are several other areas on site where we're able to manage stormwater for the entire community. We don't have full soils testing yet, but that testing effort is being coordinated today. Some early soils data that was collected last August was very encouraging. We did not hit bedrock or clay or a high groundwater table in the areas where we want to manage stormwater. Now it becomes an effort to test everywhere where we want to manage the stormwater to make sure we can infiltrate and meet the township's stormwater ordinance. Sewer, there are a number of pump stations proposed on the plan. There is a pump station near this cul-de-sac here. There is a pump station near the natatorium. There is a pump station at this low point here at the top of the open space. Eventually, all of the sewer that is collected from the site will cross underneath the PA Turnpike, travel over to Tanner Drive. It'll go down Tanner Drive to Cherie Boulevard, and then it will travel along Cherie. It'll cross Route 100 and tie into an existing sewer manhole at the intersection of Cherie and Eagleview Boulevard. The feedback we got from HRG, the township sewer consultant, said that's where the sewer needs to go, just based on capacity of existing infrastructure. And if there's a question about the operation of the pump houses, I will pass that off to Mr. Hudson.
Okay.
Is there a question on the,
Well, basically, I mean, I live on a place with an on-site system, so I have no noise and nothing. If it's a pump station, does it create noise? And how often does it run? Or, you know,
the,
whatever.
the pumps will be installed in precast concrete tanks that are below ground. You'd see the tops of the tanks, but unless you're within 25 feet, you wouldn't hear anything when the pumps run.
Okay.
So they're pretty innocuous. They'd be landscape where they'd be located. That they'd be kind of analogous to a gravity sewer line, except they have mechanical equipment in them.
Now, they also have emergency generators to run.
Yes.
How often do they run, and when would they run so the neighbors wouldn't be affected by that?
Typically, they're programmed to operate once a week for 30 minutes.
Okay.
And the kind of the standard these days is to install those generators in weatherproof acoustic enclosures. So you'd hear them, but they're not extremely loud.
Wouldn't be much different than a car, hopefully.
That'd be a good analogy.
Level 2?
Excuse me?
Level 2 enclosures?
I think that tier 3 is the current acoustic, but
Then I guess I'm curious how everything goes. This is a big operation, so you start from the sewer line where it's going in and come back, and then you're going to start where, and how's your rough idea of building the plan? And with that, quick question is, what's your time in and out? I mean, are you talking 5 years, 10 years from start to finish with construction and all that?
There is a phasing plan that has been developed as part of the tentative PRD, and the idea is construct the corridor of homes along Lionville Station Road, make the connection to Haywood, and so this would be the core, and I believe a good portion of the homes in this northeast corner would be constructed with phase 1. Now, obviously, sewer infrastructure needs to be installed before any homes are occupied. So the first phase is really construction of the road. The main infrastructure needed to support the first phase. And then in the second phase, I believe a good section of this southeast portion, and then some of the other homes over here on the western portion. And then in the third phase, I think we're talking the residential units down here, and maybe the natatorium, I believe, was in the last phase.
Okay.
Timing-wise, I haven't mapped out, the timeline. Maybe Greg has an idea.
What's your plan for lighting?
I'm sorry?
What's your lighting plan look like? What are you planning on doing as far as lighting goes?
Let me jump on the timing
Go ahead.
question first,
Go
then
ahead,
I'll hand
go
off on the lighting.
Right.
But by putting the kind of spine road in, that T and the circle, we feel like we'll minimize the amount of disruption to people that are using Lionville. Lionville Station Road will be done first, connection to Haywood at the same time, so that traffic is moving. And then as far as within the pods, it's a 4 to 5 year process from turning dirt to everyone moving in. Regarding lighting?
We've not prepared a detailed lighting plan, but it would conform with the township's lighting ordinance. So the idea is not to have light bleed off into other properties, but make the lighting safe so that folks who need to get to the guest parking areas or the natatorium parking areas are in safely lit parking lots.
So technically, only like street lights and that would be around the public areas.
You're not going to light the entire corridor?
No, that's not needed for a residential community.
Alrighty, I'm looking over my notes. Does anybody else have anything off the top of their head we want to? I guess I want to jump back to the historical dwellings. You're saying you're saving the houses, you're going to redo them and then sell them or rent them out?
We're going to restore them to residential use, and then as far as ownership, initially we were planning on owning them, but eventually potentially selling them.
Okay.
We were also asked to keep the silo, which is something that we plan on keeping as well.
Right.
Would you sell them with some kind of deed restriction to protect them?
For sure.
Well, they're on the historical register. They're gonna be restricted by the historic commission anyways. That's somebody else's job, but
And as I said earlier, I'm jumping around a little bit and looking at some of my notes. I did notice on some of the review letters where we're talking about trees. Someone want to jump in on the trees?
The way the PRD ordinance is written, it allows disturbance of 30% of the woodlands, where your ordinance normally allows only 25%. That's a number we felt was needed to construct the homes in this manner. As we go through detailed design, we will make every effort to keep that number as low as possible. But at this time, we're right around 30% of woodlands removal. And part of that woodlands removal, unfortunately, to build the berm to help screen the neighborhood at this northeast corner does require removal of some existing woodlands. So while we're putting a visual barrier back, it does technically require some woodlands removal to construct that.
Right. I just thought I'd read somewhere that you're not putting back as many trees as required. Was that a waiver you were looking for, or did I misread that somewhere?
yeah, you read that right. I just had the same thing.
Yeah.
So our landscaping plan is still, it's more than a conceptual plan, but I'd say it's definitely not final. We are complying with the street tree ordinance. We do not need a waiver to provide the required street trees. We're also providing landscaping around parking areas. The natatorium parking lot has some landscaping. The parking lot associated with the access to the open space will be landscaped. So I don't believe we've revised the plan and we've been able to eliminate the need for a landscaping waiver.
Yeah, Ed Thurkoff, your landscape architecture consultant. I did review their proposed ordinance, and I found the 30% threshold reasonable. As far as whether they can mitigate, that's going to require some more information regarding tree surveys. I would say off the top of my head that I think mitigation is feasible. I would also suggest that any shade tree, evergreen tree, or understory tree that meets size thresholds to establish equivalent value, excuse me, be applicable towards the tree replacement requirement. So I guess the short answer is I think it is feasible for them to comply.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Bobby handed me a thing that I wrote on the street tree requirement. They are short in some places. I do think that the ordinance is going to have to accommodate for the rows of townhouses where your normal street tree requirement would not be able to be met. But if you're writing an ordinance that accepts that sort of configuration of dwellings and those types of dwellings with street-facing garage fronts, you're going to have to modify your street tree requirement for those sections of roadway. So Did I make that clear?
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Otherwise, I think they comply with your normal requirements, and they're very close to that based on what I've seen so far.
Okay.
If I could just add one thing to that, I think that the flexibility Mr. Thurkoff is speaking of is maybe allowing some of those street trees to be clustered at end units of some of the attached homes instead of uniformly down the street, because there are driveways are so close together, it's hard to distribute the trees evenly. So those street trees might need to be clustered in areas where there's no driveways.
And hopefully not too close to sidewalks or roads where 10 years from now they're got to be cut down and replaced.
Correct.
Yep. We should remove it. I will say the only other, this is just my own personal, and I'm putting this out there. I see the houses, I just don't see, besides the clubhouse, there's not a lot of, I'm trying to say like, I mean, you got the open space, but not a lot of community kind of, I don't know, if you're trying to get my feeling is people over 55, they're going to go out to dinner and stuff. And of course we do have some restaurants. Was there any idea of maybe making a small area where you would put some small commercials, a couple restaurants? I don't know where that township lays with that or not. I'm just kind of, community feel, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
We did initially, after submitting the by right plan last February 2025, we did look at, all right, what's the best plan? And we spent a lot of time with seeing, okay, could we extend this shopping center here? We really just don't think we could compete with Main Street and some of the other options that people have. We talked at length with this shopping center operator, and they flat out told us that this is their worst performing shopping center in their portfolio. They said, other than Limoncello does really good business, but otherwise, it's not great for them. So we really just didn't think we could compete here. I think stuff in Eagle View is phenomenal. So I think you already have a pretty good selection for folks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think where you're going there, Dennis, is just that like in-house access, close access where you would not need to get in your car to go. From this, with this design, you need to get in your car to do anything.
Right.
And so as far as community design, this is not, it's not ideal. It's just stating.
It's not a mixed use community for sure.
Right.
And we feel that this is, having the 130 some acres of open space, like that's where we think we're celebrating here. We're working with the Environmental Advisory Council on our landscaping packages and doing things that people are going to want to be home for, in addition to the amenities here.
I do feel that your discussion about more open space that is like, what did you call them, plots or?
Oh, pocket parks.
Yeah, I feel that those would be utilized.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
And same thing, jumping around a little bit. I do have a large concern. I've read letters from the police department, the ambulance corps, and the fire company, where this community is going to put a strain on those services. Do we have any ideas how we can help that, or?
We do. We've met Andrew. I'll hand the phone or this over to Andrew so he can talk about the meetings that he's held with those groups, and we think that's important. Part of the contribution that residents have to contribute when they move into the community, a capital contribution, we're intending for a percentage of that to go towards ameliorating the concerns that are raised by fire and safety. And then each time that a property transacts, there will be a new capital contribution. So we don't want to burden the rest of the township with that. We want to burden the people that are going to be moving in here with that. But if you could talk to those meetings you had.
Okay, my question to that is, if they sell a house, then you're reoccurring. But if the people stay there for 10 years, you're getting a one-time deal, and that's not helping.
Yep.
And that, the 10-year people that have been there 10 years, now getting older, that are gonna need more ambulance and more care. So,
Yep, valid question. The on average, these communities after stabilizes, everybody's moved in, and they turn over about 21% per year. So folks moving into a 55 plus don't envision this to be their last stop. It's not senior living at this point where there's any kind of additional health care provided. And our company, we do build continuing care retirement communities where the average age is 79, whereas here it's going to be closer to 60. So this is the next step for folks downsizing. Want to be closer to family, closer to grandkids, but not necessarily staying here forever. And then that 21% is just kind of on average where they move on to various other places. Some people realize this wasn't for them. Some people realize, all right, I'm getting a little older, I need to go to some additional care.
In lieu of the capital contribution model, could it be shifted? I'm sure this community is going to have a substantial HOA monthly fee for services.
For sure.
Could there a portion of the reoccurring monthly annual HOA be allocated to ambulance and police in lieu of the one-time capital contribution instead?
Yes.
Yeah, so just to tag on to that, I've met with fire, ambulance, and police a few times throughout this process, and I will say these last round of letters is really the first sort of concrete, quantitative sort of assessment that we've received, and each of the leaders of these emergency services have admittedly said it's a little hard to pin exactly what the impact will be, which is fair, and it's fair to say that it's not that there's no impact. Like there's people, there's new residents. We acknowledge that, and so we've committed with our conversations with them that we want to, if this were to move forward, work with them and be creative to make sure that there's a contribution back to that to ensure that at a minimum that it's not creating a negative, that we can at least neutralize that. Obviously, there's current, there's already a bit of a strain on more than others because funding is different, and I don't want to get into that, but the different departments are funded in different ways and by different revenue streams. So, but between contributions that we think that the residents moving in here can make, there's also we did some fiscal impact studies just based on this, and we do have our consultant here that could speak to that further if we wanted to get into that, but just wanted to add to that.
yeah, that part's good too, but you're over 55. I don't see anybody in that community going to be a volunteer fireman. Okay, so that's,
Understood.
The money, then there was talk about paid fire also. So now you're getting in a whole nother jump. So, but it's things we have to consider because we are adding a large burden here,
I think the police department said they would need to hire 2 more patrol officers potentially.
Yes.
In their letter.
That's
So
what they
there's
said? Is that what the police chief said? Yeah. All right. So.
Right here.
Yep. So
Or
just,
more additional-
we're just trying to, hammer out everything that we can so we don't get blindsided,
perhaps, as you mentioned, having, in your conversations with the emergency services, they might have had a little bit of trouble kind of nailing down what their anticipated additional call volumes might be. I wonder if there's benchmarking data that you have more access to with regards to, these types of communities, similar communities like this elsewhere in the state or the Northeast that, could be reference points for them to help them with their own projections to then feed back into whatever, cost modeling you're doing for that. Whether that's transaction capital fees or HOA fees, whichever way better, closer data might be helpful.
When we're trying to figure out what we would be charging, whether it was monthly or capital contribution, we'll have to do all that analysis.
Yeah.
So, still just looking over my notes, trying to make sure I make some sense of everything. Pool and everything, Energy Star certification, HOA documents.
Can we revisit what Bill had asked about the wildlife?
Go ahead.
The wildlife concern that he brought up. What could be some potential mitigation for that? Is this something that you have discussed before? Or what, you know,
Talking about the deer fence.
yeah.
Yeah, we were addressing the concerns of our neighbor that wanted it, that didn't necessarily want the deer moving from this property to their property. But we're open.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if there was any thoughts that you had for that.
Well, they move across that property now. Now they're going to be restricted from moving across that property. I mean, just, it's going to become a problematic area of this development. You're going to have wildlife, you're going to have raccoons, probably coyotes. We haven't seen many coyotes yet, but with this type of concentration, you're going to have them. The herd's going to have to be culled. It's a large deer herd that's over there. It's not eating the understory like it did in Valley Forge Park, but you're going to have to manage this, and that's going to bring a whole other aspect. That's probably going to really see the effects once everybody's in, all the construction stopped, and everything settles down. Then the deer are going to come in, and all the other wildlife. It's all that buffet of plantings that have been put in there, and in 15 minutes, people are going to be screaming, you know, why did you plant this? Why didn't you plant that? All of those things. So I'm just aware of what's going to happen here. I've seen it in a number of developments, and I worked at Chesterbrook when Chesterbrook went from 2,500 acres, you know, of this sort of stuff. So probably the biggest contributor to the Valley Forge Park problem was Chesterbrook. But that's just ancient history now. But I feel like we've restricted, that we have put a barrier right through that large property for the wildlife. And if they're not getting what they need in the open space area, there's going to be a real problem, because they're either going to try and migrate across the turnpike or through the residential developments and come up against the deer fence and follow the fence till it stops. Somebody smarter than me maybe could figure it out. We are the Lyme disease capital of the world practically anyways.
Any other questions for that?
No, I just thought we should revisit that because that was a dangling.
Right, a dangling question. Okay, I'm just looking over my notes. Anybody else offhand? Anything?
I'm curious to hear what the community has to say.
Oh, what?
I'm curious to what the community has to say.
Okay. Well, before we open up for public comment, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
We have our consultants just give a few words and touch on hot topics in their letters that haven't been discussed so
Yes.
far.
Yes, very much so.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Mastroli, and I am an engineer with HRG. HRG is the sewer engineer for Euclid Township. So we have provided comment response for the Rockwell plan submissions for Lionville Preserve. And tonight I'm presenting kind of a summary of our third comment response letter addressing a review of the PRD submission from January 29th. So first, the anticipated average daily wastewater flow from the residential portion of Lionville Preserve is 107,073 gallons per day, And this includes all proposed homes, so both single family and the age-restricted homes, as well as the community center. The anticipated natatorium is separate from that, and that is coming in at 3,400 gallons predicted per day. Second, the latest submission proposes 3 pump stations, as was highlighted before, all to be built during the first phase of the 3 proposed phases of Lionville Preserve. And that southernmost pump station that was pointed out by the natatorium should be equipped to send all flow from the property across the turnpike via the force main for treatment, as was kind of highlighted with the pointer earlier. Third, Haywood Drive is no longer being used for the force main route. As shown on the PRD, I have here on pages 4 or 5 and 5.1 of that, the force main is proposed to use Tanner Drive and Cherie Boulevard to connect into the existing sewer system on Eagleview Boulevard, as discussed previously. Fourth, since the force main route was changed, this will require Rockwell to coordinate with Portman Holdings, which owns the warehouse that is up there, to obtain a sanitary sewer easement from their I-76 warehouse property. So this force main will be directionally drilled or jack and bored to go underneath the turnpike, so under the existing road. Fifth, as also stated earlier, with 10 phases reduced to 3, the pump stations and force mains will be constructed in the first phase. And finally, to address the availability of wastewater treatment capacity, there currently is not capacity at Eagleview Wastewater Treatment Plant for Rockwell. Euclid Township intends to construct a pump station and a force main to send flow bound for the Eagleview Wastewater Treatment Plant to the Downingtown Regional Water Pollution Control Center. And the Downingtown Area Regional Authority plans a 1 million gallon per day expansion at the Downingtown plant. At this time, it appears that when both projects are completed, then there will be capacity for Rockwell and Lionville Preserve. So as for potential timelines, the township with HRG is actively pursuing the Act 537 plan that will provide for building the pump station and force main. These projects could be built and operational as quickly as 2 years from now, but might extend to 3 years from now. Additionally, the Downingtown Area Regional Authority is going through the necessary steps to get an increase in their permitted flow, and this itself is not in the township's control. And the expansion at that plant could be as quick as 2 years or several years beyond. And finally, the estimated topping fee for Lionville Preserve is approximately $3.22 million. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add a comment on the trail system. I understand the desire to have a soft surface trail, but I can say after extensive experience in municipal planning that I haven't seen a wood chip trail that was worth anything after 2 years, and they're not worth much when freshly installed. I ran a few numbers to do. I think the trail ought to be a hard surface asphalt trail because you've got significant role to the topography. To use any sort of granular or other surface like that, you're just inviting erosion and a lot of maintenance expense and headaches. I figure a mulch trail, they've shown a trail 10 feet wide. I figure a 1 mile mulch trail is about $115,000 to install. And you're looking at $30,000 of mulch replenishment at least every 2 years. An asphalt trail, if you took it down to 8 feet wide, that would be about $170,000, and you wouldn't need to replace that for a very long time. Also, I don't know what is envisioned as the user profile. If it's pedestrians only, you could even get away with a 6-foot wide trail. But if you're going to envision people riding bikes on it or something like that, you need 8 at least, and 10's even better. So I think those are some thoughts to consider as you go forward with, evaluating this proposal. I couldn't recommend more strongly against a wood chip trail.
Are your comments all contained in number 8 in the letter from February 19th? Does that cover what your sentiment is?
Yes, and you'll note that for a multi-use path, 8 to 10 feet is basically the minimum standard. You can get away with 8, and for pedestrian use, if it's pedestrians only, you could do 6 foot wide. So you have to decide how you envision this being used and then design appropriately.
What was the rationale for the wood chip versus asphalt? It doesn't sound like the cost is that significant. Is it impervious?
So, just to kind of react first to Mr. Thurkoff, we are engaged in a conversation with PADEP and the Conservation District to understand if they would allow for a paved trail in a riparian buffer. So that is one hurdle that we would that regulatory hurdle that we'd have to get over first. If the door is open, I think we're open to exploring paved trails because the maintenance cost, is a valid point.
I think that's something worth exploring. I can tell you that we did do a paved trail within the floodplain of French Creek in East Pikeland Township. Stormwater management can also be handled with effectively silt socks filled with growing medium. This application has been used at the Belfour installation in West Whiteland Township, and we also used it along a trail at Brightside Farm in Charlestown Township. So that there are ways to address that issue.
Pass the mic down.
Hi, I'm Carl Russick, Conservation Director for French and Pickering Creeks Conservation Trust. On the question of deer management, we've been engaged with the applicant and more recently with the EAC on some of the requirements that we'd place in order to accept this as a conservation easement, particularly with respect to investments in improving the conservation value of the property, such as the meadow that was mentioned. And one of the topics that did come up is deer management. And one of the things that we have put forward is the requirement for a deer management plan. Obviously our focus is on the approximately 50-acre area that would be subject to the conservation easement. But deer management over the larger development could be included in that as well. So that it's early in the discussions, but that is something because, frankly, if an investment is being made on planting natives and improving the conservation value in the riparian area, you don't want deer eating it all as it's being planted. So it's a concern for us as well.
And is that included in which letter?
It's been shared with the township. I don't know if it was in a formal comment letter that's before you all.
Dan?
Yeah, I'll just add a couple minor things that I don't think we really touched on. But one, it's if you had a chance to look at the letter, our letter, Bowman, March 11. Comment number 4 is suggesting a post-development, post-occupancy traffic study. After they're up and running and things are going, let's see how things are actually working, and how accurate the planning was, and if there are really any deficiencies that would need to be addressed. But so that's just a recommendation that we have. PennDOT has agreed that that's a good idea, and they often require that as well. And then we also had a concern over the parking at the natatorium and the overlap of events. Just curious if, and Eric, we've coordinated, of course, about, I know you got the loading analysis from Phil Aquatics, and if there was anything, and we can coordinate separately maybe to come to some resolution, but is there any way to look at, if an event goes from, say, 8 a.m. to noon, and then there's another one from 1 to 5, that hour in between when you really have a huge surge of people leaving and people are still going to be hanging on from the first event that haven't left yet, and then people are showing up for the second event. How does that stress the parking supply? Right. When you have it might be more on those 4 or 5 times a year events, but I guess we don't really know exactly. But maybe based on that loading analysis, if there's if you have those morning, afternoon, evening meets that overlap, like you're talking about the I forget who mentioned the ice rinks. Same thing. When one hockey game's going on, before it ends, people are showing up and filling up the parking lot even more for the next game before the first game has let out. So it could be kind of the same thing with the natatorium. Right. So we're just curious as to how that would affect the parking supply there. That was pretty much it.
I can react to that. I mean, Matt's right. We provided a very large load analysis that was prepared by Phil Aquatics on their operations. They've indicated to us and the applicant that during their typical operations and their smaller swim meets that the 500 spaces are adequate. It's those 4 larger meets per year where they would have to. But we can dig into that load analysis to make sure they're considering that overlap.
Okay.
Again, as operators, that comes into play for their planning as well.
Yeah, that'd be great, just to verify.
Can I ask, the post-development traffic study, I don't know who I'm directing this question to, but how often, if you have this contingency in your plan, how often do changes actually get made, to the traffic patterns, as a result of these studies? Is the threshold the same as it would be for initial construction, or does it have to meet, is the threshold changed because you're in post-development? I don't know if I've worded my question or if that makes sense.
I think I understand what you're saying, and Eric can weigh in as well. I mean, I think we have similar experience working both sides of the fence and everything, and it just really depends on the situation, I think, in terms of what has been imposed on the applicant, from PennDOT or from the township, in each unique situation. If the conditions of approval say you have to do a post-development study, and if there are any deficiencies below level of service, whatever, at any movements, you have to correct them and mitigate them. And if that's required, then that would be required. But frankly, I don't think I haven't really seen that implemented, actually done much historically. All the hocus pocus is done up front with all the planning and the, trying to predict the future of what we think is going to happen based on everything we've done in the past and all the data that we have. And most of the time it works pretty well. I think as things get more and more congested in our region, these types of studies are becoming more and more regular because it is hard to predict. And as Eric mentioned, there were I think at least 8 other developments that they included in their background traffic. Assuming those are built, what's the traffic going to look like? And they're not even built yet, but they're planning all the improvements from this development, assuming that those are all built and that the traffic for those are all there. If half of those don't even materialize, the traffic's not going to be as heavy as what they're saying in the study, or something else comes in that makes you just don't know.
So in your experience, like what the traffic plans have been agreed upon from the initial approval, like are generally sufficient to mitigate any like significant congestion or issues that, you know, would result?
I'm sure probably most people in this room could point to situations where, boy, that doesn't work very well here and there, you know. But I mean, I have been doing this for 30 years, and probably 9.5 times out of 10, things work as good or better than were planned. But it depends on the situation.
Okay. Dan? I know I kind of jumped around some of the things, Dan. You can hit your hot topics. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys did a good job covering most of the items here that I had in my letter. Just a couple points that I've highlighted in my letter here. And this is maybe a question for the applicant here. On page 3 of my letter, I discuss about the natatorium and their involvement with the HOA and operation and maintenance fees for roadways and shared parking, and kind of wanted to figure out how you envision that happening with the natatorium and being part of stormwater management, maintenance, and operation and stuff like that.
Well, to the extent that they're shared facilities, that lot would obviously be assigned a pro rata share of the maintenance. I don't know at this stage of the game if there's a shared stormwater management facility that would service the natatorium and the residential portion. It may be that it's on its own, it handles all its own stormwater management, and they'd be on their own. But that probably would be handled. They wouldn't be part of the HOA. At least I don't envision that now. We're a little ways away from getting to that level of detail, but they could very easily be assessed to cost sharing, and probably would in this instance for common facilities, maybe a share of road maintenance, a share of sidewalk maintenance. So from the legal perspective, I wouldn't see them as being HOA members. That would be awkward and wouldn't serve any practical purpose at all. But there could be a cost-sharing mechanism with them. Works the same way as a contract, where every year, every 6 months, or whatever the protocol is, they would make a contribution towards shared common facilities.
Okay. And obviously that would be worked out with the final PRD process.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it before. I'll tell you what doesn't work is what I just said, is having a residential community like this and having a non-residential user like well, I've never done a natatorium before, so I can't say, but take your pick, an ice rink or whatever. That marriage usually doesn't work. It's usually best handled up front with a cost-sharing arrangement. So they're not part of the HOA decisions on open space and trails and, cutting the grass and the conservation easement. That's up to the HOA. Typically, the commercial operator doesn't care. You just send them a bill every year, and this is your fair share.
Okay. I'm going to jump the proceeding, going through my letter here, basically page number 8, jumping through here. We talked about, I know it came up briefly here, about sustainability and energy efficiency. You guys have talked about the Energy Star certifications. I know the Planning Commission, from sitting through many of your meetings in the past, have this been a big topic of your guys' conversation. So just want to make sure that you guys are understanding what they're proposing, and obviously if there's questions or issues that you want to do for that, they are looking to having these units being Energy Star requirements here for the new construction, and I know there's various levels associated with that, but I just would recommend that you guys, from a planning commission point of view here, consider that, especially with based upon past discussions for other projects and your interest in that topic. So the layout here, I've just made one comment here that I would recommend that the applicant look to consider here for the final plan process here in the south west corner, where the former natatorium was going to be, in the lower left. Yeah, that area there is I just think there could be some consideration of slight adjustments to that layout. How that's set up right now is with 3 rows. You have rear facing, you give units facing fronts and then rear facing units. It's just kind of an odd layout here for that configuration, and I don't think it needs to be worked out as far as during the tentative PRD process here, but just kind of trying to configure out how to possibly lay those units out to not have, you're not staring out your front window to the back of another unit and looking at people's decks and so on. So I just was made a comment about that on page 8 of my review letter for consideration here as they proceed to a final plan process if they are going to go forward with the project here.
We have a solution for that as well, and it actually, that solution tackles another issue, and so we're going to elongate that part of the development, and it will result in a very small increase in open space, and it will also set back the homes closest to Lionville Station Road 50 feet from the road, where I think we fall short of that with that current layout. So we've explored that, and we've solved a couple of other issues with it as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's what my suggestion really was. I haven't seen that those sketch or modification layouts, but I just would like the applicant to further consider that, and I'm glad to hear that they have started that process. The page 9 of my review letter just kind of runs through final PRD submission comments, that items to as kind of earmarks from my earlier review letters, that, hey, these are the items that make sure we consider and discuss through the final plan process here, assuming it goes forward. And I don't think I need to really run through them here tonight here, but just for the Planning Commission's consideration and for the applicant's consideration as the project moves forward, for those things to consider. So made some comments regarding pedestrian connectivity crossing Lionville Station Road, limits of dedication of the right-of-ways, which I guess the applicant has already kind of talked about here for this aspect. Updating the environmental impact assessments as it gets into further engineered plans are some of the key components of that. From a stormwater management point of view here, the applicant has submitted a very preliminary stormwater management report indicating they kind of looked at loading ratios to show that they have a significant area footprint that they believe can manage the runoff for the site. During the future phases of the project here, there's going to be very detailed stormwater management reports that need to show compliance with the township ordinance requirements and also with the state requirements for the NPDES permits. And there'll be a lot of further analysis associated with stormwater management. And if the applicant is unable to achieve the stormwater management controls, they're going to have to reduce density to make larger basins and so on. But they believe at this point their initial analysis is that they have a significant area footprints to manage this runoff, and that will all be determined in future phases of the project. That was about it for me.
Good.
Dennis, sorry. If I could just raise two things that the County Planning Commission brought up in their review letter. The first, and I think is pretty simple, but they recommend that PRD applicants create a manual of written and graphic design guidelines as part of design standards. So there's kind of a cohesive overall design. I think that kind of falls between the tentative plan approval and the final plan approval, but I guess just kind of a question to toss out to the applicant in terms of, are you willing to work on developing that manual? Absolutely. And then the other one that I just wanted to raise, and frankly, I don't know who the question is directed to. Maybe it's the Planning Commission to have some dialogue amongst yourselves, or talk with the applicant, or maybe one of our consultants has some opinions on it. But one of the comments is in terms of the zoning change and adopting the PRD1 overlay, is making sure that it's generally consistent with our comprehensive plan. And I know that we received at least one email from a resident, staff did, kind of asking questions of a similar nature in terms of not the question of should it be warehouses or industrial or should it be residential, but more when you look at the context of this parcel with kind of the larger lots to the north and kind of surrounding it, large open space, working farm, kind of to the east, is the density that's proposed on the site an appropriate amount of density? Recognizing that there's some clustering that's happening there, but a lot of the clustering, is because there's parts of the there are parts of the parcel that just simply aren't buildable because of riparian buffers or steep slopes that are prohibitive or different things like that. And so I just wanted to, I would be remiss, the County Planning Commission raised it. We had at least one resident raise the question, is the density appropriate that's being proposed here? Thank you. I see my time.
Where is that on the letter? So just have it.
Yeah, so
numbered.
on the County Planning Commission review letter on page 5, comment number 15, prior to acting on this amendment, the township should determine if the zoning map amendment is generally consistent with its comprehensive plan as set forth in section 603J of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Code.
Very good thing to bring up.
Was this the letter that was concerned, like comparing it to Lion Gate across the street?
That was the resident.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, with that, I have to tell everybody we need to take a 5-minute recess, and we will come back and we will have a couple more questions and open it up to the public at that point. All right, 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
You done us?
Yep.
You hit a ton of the things that I wanted to talk about.
What's that?
I had tons of things I wanted to talk about. You hit 5.
Well, I mean,
it's all right.
Our mics are short.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also there's stuff in here that you called this on individually and got their input, and a lot of it.
Well, I can let you talk.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there's
To be honest with you, I didn't start talking to her. I don't Yeah, I'm sorry how long he's working with Jeff.
Hey, what's up? Good. Yeah.
have your issue. The valley and the public meetings.
All right, then we're good? Yeah, so.
I think they're everybody might want to ask the guy I'm thinking you're in here and you're taking this box. Welcome to the township.
But she's not voting. She can't vote yet.
What's her vote here?
This is Rachel. Township president.
This is the big one. This is the big one to start.
She did all them. I wanted to show you something. This is Ruth's necklace. Do you recognize it? She had it like in her shirt like, every day, and my mom gave it to me when I was She's with us. What? That's on there. And your granddaughter is friendly with my daughter. They're on track together. And seventh grade? Yes. 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 Oh, I didn't see you. Yeah. They've gotten to know each other now. Yeah. Yeah. Sadie Davis.
Take our seats. Get back.
We need to get the public comment or we're never going to be finished.
What's that?
We need to get the public comment.
Well, that's what let's see if there's any other comments.
And from the, yeah.
Or from any other.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, you know, we're talking about that's just minutia, you know, that'll all get worked out as a drawing. It's something we really don't need to be talking about. But it is what it is.
Probably half of my questions were, well, yeah.
I don't know that's what yours, but some of them.
No, well, yes.
It is what it is.
You gotta kind of generate the
That's my water. Here, I had water.
Okay, everybody back. Thank you for that quick break. So at the present time then, I am going to ask for any comments from any of our experts from the township. Do they have any other comments? Anybody from Rockwell have any other comments or things you want to add?
My name is Doug McCord.
But, do you work with Rockwell?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said it was time for.
No, not yet. One minute. 1 minute, I'm do that. And then, okay. Anybody on the board have any other comments before we open it to public comment? Okay, now with that, if you would come up to the mic and give us your name and your address.
Yes.
I did do a sign in, but I was going to let whoever came up, but I'll take that also. Here, you can bring it up. I was just going to let everybody come forward also.
Okay, I didn't
Thank you.
sign in, so I'm cheating.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll let you cheat. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Doug McCord. I'm a 49-year resident of Euclid Township. And I've got a few questions. I haven't been following the details of the program, but the general idea. The general question is, what is the true price to Euclid Township for making this change in the zoning law? Years ago, people such as yourselves spent time creating the zoning laws, creating the conditions that we required, certain percentages by the state. This particular parcel, I understand, was intended for light industrial. Hence, only public water was put in, not public sewers, because the light industrial would have on-site wastewater treatment. So the intent by volunteers such as yourselves was to have this area be a light industrial. I think we have to be careful in disrespecting them by ignoring what they came up with their volunteer time. And when I talk about what is the real price of this to the township, obviously there's additional income, taxes, whatnot. However, what I call the Kennett Square syndrome, people moved to Kennett Square to get out in the country. They got out in the country, and suddenly they didn't like the country odors, all the mushroom composting and whatnot. Who got the phone calls? The Board of Supervisors, the township. I'm worried in this program. Let me remind you of one other thing. 2 years ago, the Board of Supervisors at a public meeting, when I raised this question, said that a very important item to them is the environment and protecting the environment. We have proposals for modifying the land, specifically stormwater management. Well, that's good. I'm a civil engineer myself, but things go wrong in designs. If this rather elaborate stormwater program doesn't work, the builder, the developer is long gone. Just like if you get phone calls that, hey, there's an odor, this farm that people think is a Currier and Ives thing. Well, if the wind's blowing the right way when manure's being spread, the developer will not be getting the call. We will, we the township, and we the taxpayers will be paying for the corrections and modifications to make any errors correct. What are we gaining? A lot of liability.
Okay,
Thank you. So since we have the sign-up sheet, does Tony want to come forward?
Not at this time, thanks.
Not at this time? Okay. And I can't see what the name, Weidner? Jennifer Drive?
Widener, like
Widener?
University.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Oh, yeah, my name is Susan Widener.
Okay.
I live at 75 Jennifer Drive. I've been a resident of this township for 38 years. When I first saw this plan, I was just like in shock. A natatorium, a 74,000 square foot facility, which tonight Ms. Cisco called, you said the plan is a traffic creator. 74,000 square foot natatorium, 500 parking spaces, 583 homes. This, in an area we're already living in. Liongate is a PRD, I believe. The I-76 Trade Center hasn't even been leased yet. What will the traffic be from that? This is a standalone building, this natatorium. There's no connection between this and 583 houses. Where is the community involved in this sort of density in our township? I mean, this township is known for Eagleview, which is a beautiful development. And this is like a standalone building, 583 houses. Across the street is over 300 houses. Right down this way, we go into the I-76 Trade Center. I mean, how much is too much density for this area? Isn't that your question tonight? Whether or not we can sustain this type of density. In addition, the traffic has never been proposed, that I've seen them discuss anything about what happens when you make the left-hand turn out of Lionville Station Road down 113, where it goes from 5 lanes down to 2, down to 401. Oh wait, this is something PennDOT they interface with, and maybe this will be addressed in the future. And then they said tonight that there would be 5 to 10% of the traffic going down Hayward to Byers. Well, how does that even figure out? Where did they come up with that kind of figure? This development will generate close to 5,000 vehicular trips a day. And they're saying 5 to 10% goes down to Byers Road. I mean, I don't even know where these figures come from. These are just some of my concerns. Also, we have the only pedestrian sidewalks in Euclid Township along 113. Walk our dog up there, push our baby carriage. I mean, the amount of traffic and density that this development and natatorium would generate is frightening. How are we protected, residents who have been here 40 years, with something like this coming in when we're already in overload? Which you're well aware that we're in overload with the traffic. So my plea to you tonight is do not recommend this to our supervisors. Please do not recommend this plan, this PRD proposal. Take time and consider.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is John Lager.
Thank you. John Lager. I live at 105 Silver Fox Lane. Is it possible to put the map up or the design? Because I wanted to point something out to ask a question about.
Not at this point.
Well,
You gotta stay close to the microphone. Yep, and I mean, it's a 3-minute public comment, so.
no, so it's just a request.
Okay.
My property actually backs up to the northern newly proposed homes that would be on the north side of Haywood Drive. And so just looking at the map, it looks like probably within about 300 feet of the back of those homes. And I can tell that I'm going to be able to see the back of those homes through the trees that are there, and there's going to be about 1/3 of them cut down for Haywood Drive and for the homes. So here's my request, and I think the developer has been very sensitive the last few years, taking into account comments. Is it possible so that I don't have to look at, and then the people in my development don't have to look at the back of those homes that are going to go in on the north side of Haywood Drive, if you could put some kind of a fence, like a wooden fence or something like that, just so we don't have to see where people throw everything in their backyard and put their cars up on blocks and that kind of thing. So it's just a request
Even if it's $1 million
consider that.
Cars and blocks.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Joy will.
All right. Okay, that's all I have written down. Do I have anybody else? Come forward, state your name.
My name is Tom Bibolito. I live at 604 Byers Road. So I live right at the intersection of Lionville Station and Byers Road.
Right.
I just have a couple questions. I think a lot of this talk is kind of based on this development only, and I haven't heard anything about the northern part of Lionville Station Road and the traffic that's going to go on there. I think you said that there wouldn't be a traffic problem. Do you live here in this area?
I didn't say there would be.
Oh. Okay. I mean, if you live here and you walk around, there's a traffic issue. So any additional traffic is just going to create more of a problem. But I was wondering if the house at the middle of Lionville Station Road that Hankin owns, if they've talked to Hankin at all about purchasing that house, because I do know that he rents it and the renter just moved out. So I don't know if if there's talk of moving that house and widening that intersection or what there is. But that house is on the historic registry, I know. So what's the plans for that house, if there's any? The other question I had was, so my driveway, as some of you know, if you live north of Lionville Station, takes on all of the water that comes down Lionville Station Road. Everything comes down to our driveway. I have to access it, but not only me having to access it, but Aqua has to access my driveway. So they're also concerned about this. If will this development increase that? Because the DEP's been out to the driveway numerous times, but at the creek, and they're saying that the erosion is pushed to the max already with the flooding that happens there now. So I know this is not a direct part of their agreement or sale property, but it is going to affect that as well. So it's something they have to think about. Because the flooding there, which I have pictures of, and you've probably all seen, I know you've seen, it's awful. And if it's going to add to it, then it's going to create a big problem for myself and Aqua. So I'm sure you'll hear from them. The other thing I was thinking about is with, I know Downingtown's not here, but what research should they do to request this natatorium? I mean, did they have any background for this, or did they just say they wanted it? And why couldn't they just add a swimming pool onto the school? Was that ever proposed to them at all, or from the township? I'm wondering if that was ever brought up. I mean, why all of a sudden do you need this massive swimming club when we don't even have a football field? And we can't have lights, so how are we going to have lights all around this development if we can't have lights in Euclid Township? Are we going to make an exception for that? I mean, that's the other questions you have to ask. If you're allowing it for them, then let's get a football field somewhere with lights, right? The last thing I just have to say, and I would pose this to just the people of Rockwell, is if this was your neighborhood, what would you say, and why would you say that? Would you want this in your neighborhood?
All right,
Yes
thank
or
you.
no, and why?
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment?
Try to get it all down. My name is Chris Engel. I live Valley View Lane, which is just up to the northern end of this proposed plan. I support a residential plan and rezoning to support such a plan. And through all the meetings, traffic seems to be at the top of the list of concerns for everybody. So based on that, I think Downingtown School District is burdening this process and this township by forcing an auditorium regardless of what gets built here. And so I agree with you. Why should our township bear the brunt? I encourage the township and this commission to use the tools at its disposal to dissuade the school district, making this a requirement, as it may help to facilitate coming to a final plan. Let's send a clear message to DASD that it's not going to work out to the extent that we have the power to do that. Keep the plan, ditch the facility. If the township and commission is still finding that the traffic is overly concerning, my question is, who's to say that anything else would be better? Based on the assumption that this property will be developed one way or another at some point, I would want to see definitive proof that any other concept would alleviate these concerns before considering anything else other than a residential plan. As my kids say today, bring the receipts. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Floor is open. Everybody's quiet.
He's coming up.
I'm Greg Weiss. I live at 467 Lionville Station Road. My home is closer to this proposed development than anybody else in this room. And Rockwell took some time to speak with me and my neighbor, and I was grateful for that. But my final opinion is, after reviewing everything and agreeing with a lot of the other comments, the density is just too high. It comes down to that. And the traffic is going to be outrageous. And the school district and the natatorium is forcing part of that. And I agree that there's some more room, and there's definitely just got to be more planning as far as how this comes together. You can reduce the density. I think a good example is in West Whiteland, just approved 312 units, I think, or 17 units on 100 acres. This is about 100 acres that's being developed, and we're being forced to put 570 units on ours along with a natatorium. Why can't we look to that plan and see, hey, why not have some more open space like you said? Why can't we put or add some sort of more green space within? I think Rockwell understands what we're looking for, but I think they're also pinched because of what's happening with the school district. And I think there's a common ground, but the way the plan sits right now and what's being presented, I can't support it. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else open for the floor?
Good evening. Kent MP, 487 Lionville Station Road. To Rockwell, I appreciate incorporation of some of my feedback, especially moving the stormwater management to save most of the wooded areas to the north. I call that a good start. Removal of 30% of the wooded areas, however, is very high. This is called Lionville Station Preserve. Please preserve the woods, not just for the nuisance white-tailed deer. The woods in these areas are homes to red-tailed hawks, eagles, owls, many variations of woodpeckers, many migratory birds, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, chipmunks, squirrels, flying squirrels, foxes, turtles, and snakes, to name a few. There is a section of about 8+ acres of woods just to the east and just to the south of the valley that is along the east side. According to the plan, this entire section of woods will be ripped out. I believe the density is still high, and I'm disappointed that the township's new open space tax plan is only buying down about 20 or so homes. I wrote a letter to Euclid, emailed lsr@euclid.com, like many others here, before October 30th, with my written feedback, which, among other things, I expressed my frustration with the financing of the Rossi property, which was purchased, which was on the long-term plan for years and years, purchased in April 2024, financed 100% by a November 2024 open space tax referendum. I don't think enough of that money is being used for Lionville Station. Traffic is already a problem in the area. For example, 401 South to 113 in the mornings and evenings, there is a signal cycle failure, or when it goes more than 2 or more light cycles to get through. Sometimes it's over 10, backing up all the way 0.9 miles to Byers Road to the north. Why does this matter? That's parallel to this area. Similar traffic occurs north and southbound on 100. Because of these bottlenecks, where does the rush hour traffic go? I can tell you because I live on Lionville Station Road. I personally can tell you that it cuts a lot of traffic cuts through Lionville Station Road. This density will only make that matter worse. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm looking around. Anybody else want to jump up? Okay, do I have any other comments from the Planning Commission? Do I have someone that would like to make a recommendation or motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the tentative plan, residential development plan, and associated PRD ordinance for Lion Station Preserve as submitted by Rockwell Downingtown LLC, contingent on the removal of the natatorium and lower density number of units, approximately 400, including the Eli Kahn property, and the approval of the waivers as requested and supported by the township engineers, and compliance with the review letters and dates listed, which I'm going to go through.
Okay.
E.B. Walsh, review letter dated March 9th, 2026. HRG review letter dated March 10th, 2026. Bowman review letter dated March 11th, 2026. Therakoff review letter dated February 19th, 2026. Fire Marshal memo dated February 27th, 2026. TCA memorandum dated February 26th, 2026. Chester County Planning Commission letter dated March 3rd, 2026. Ambulance letter email dated March 11th, 2026. Lionville Fire Company letter received and dated March 24th, 2026. Police review letter dated March 31st, 2026. French and Pickering review letters dated October 9th, 2025 and December 9th, 2025. Historical Commission letter dated December 1st, 2025. The ordinance and plan should be revised to reflect the appropriate density. The applicant should also address concerns raised in the letters by West Pikeland and West Euclid, and our discussions related to deer management, and submitting an emergency service impact study and updated fiscal impact study based on the results of the emergency service impact study for review prior to the board hearing. The applicant will also need to comply with all PennDOT comments and requirements once their review letter is received.
All right, I have a recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second. I'll have a vote. I'm going to individually poll each member. If they would give their comment. Mr. McLaughlin?
Don't we normally have a discussion before we vote?
Well, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
All righty.
Well, of course, first question is for a solicitor. There's no mention per se of the PRD in that motion she made. So should there be an inclusion that the PRD as it stands is not approved, and that a new PRD will have to be developed?
I did hear, I thought I heard that this was a motion with regard to both the PRD ordinance as well
Yes.
as the tentative plan.
I said the tentative plan and the associated PRD ordinance, zoning
Okay,
ordinance.
it's not, okay. All right.
All right, do I have any other comments from the board?
The only comment I'll make around the proposed ordinance is, again, the definition of special event. And to another member's comment concerned about the threshold of 500, I think it was 500 spaces, or, who is measuring that? Should they hit the 500 or even close to it for any given period of time, a couple of hour period of time? And what is the penalty should they exceed that?
My recommendation is the removal of the natatorium.
Thank you.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I mean, we could still discuss that, but
No.
probably not.
So, okay.
One thing I did want to just say to the public is that we were provided this plan, but this all came about because we were reacting to this zoning request. But we did not have much time with any alternative plan. So our comments on our recommendation is based off the plan that's in front of us. We're not evaluating industrial light industrial. This is a recommendation based off the plan that we are seeing tonight.
Correct. Thank you. Okay with that? Paul?
I prefer to make the motion that we deny the job, this project in its entirety.
Well, that's not what
I know.
Voting
So
on
so what am I gonna do?
So what you would do is we would discuss this motion and then you can make another motion.
You would vote on this.
Right, you vote on this
Right.
motion
Okay.
and then you can create another
All right,
motion.
well, I approve this motion as stated.
You would?
I approve your motion. Is that what?
Motion is to.
That's voting yes.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Are we done discussion?
All right, go ahead.
So what am I voting on exactly?
What she
read?
What she just read.
Are you in favor of that motion or are you against that motion?
I'm against that motion.
I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay, I'm against.
I'm in favor.
And I'm in favor.
Okay. There you have it. We have 3 in favors and 1 not, or 2 against. So the township supervisors will get the recommendation, the way she stated it with all the stipulations. All right. Thank you. With that, is there? Can I call for? Yeah, I'm losing my head. I need to call for an adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second the motion.
A second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.